The morning I got that call, I didn't think much of it at first. It was early. Too early for anything serious, and the voice on the other end sounded unsure. Almost like they didn't want to be the one telling me. They said, "Hey, you might want to come down to your land. There's something going on." That pause right there stayed with me. Because people don't hesitate like that unless something is really wrong. And when I asked what they meant, they didn't explain. They just said, "You should see it yourself." I remember grabbing my keys and driving faster than I probably should have. The whole way there, my mind was trying to fill in the blanks. Maybe someone trespassed. Maybe there was damage. Maybe construction equipment crossed the line by mistake. I had no idea that what I was about to see would be something far worse than any of that. And when I got there, everything went quiet. No birds, no wind, just the sound of machinery. And then I saw it. If you think that's already bad, just wait. Because what happened next turned into something the HOA never saw coming. Before I get into it, if you enjoy stories like this, make sure you like the video and subscribe to Karen Stories Daily. It really helps the channel grow. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. So let me take you back a bit, because none of this makes sense without the full story. The land I'm talking about wasn't just any property. It had been in my family for generations. My grandfather owned it before me, and his father before that. It wasn't huge. It wasn't flashy. But it had something most places don't: history. Real history. The kind you don't replace or rebuild. And part of that land was a small burial site. Now, this wasn't some abandoned or forgotten place. It was maintained, marked, protected. There were 12 graves there, each one belonging to someone who mattered to my family. People who lived on that land, worked it, built everything around it. I grew up visiting that spot, cleaning it, hearing stories about who was buried there and why they were important. It wasn't just land, it was memory. Everything about it was documented properly, registered, protected under local regulations. There was no confusion about what it was or who it belonged to. And right next to that land was an HOA community. You know the kind. Perfect lawns, identical houses, and rules for everything. Over the years, they expanded slowly, added more homes, built a golf course, made everything look clean and organized. At first, there was no issue. They stayed on their side, I stayed on mine. But eventually, they started running out of space. And that's when they started looking at my land. The first contact was polite. Someone from the HOA reached out asking if I'd consider selling a portion of the property, specifically the section near the golf course. I said no. Simple as that. They came back with a higher offer. Still no. Then they tried a different angle, talking about community benefit, property value increases, and how it would be a great opportunity. I still said no. Because for me, it wasn't about money. It was about what that land meant. That's when Karen showed up. Head of the HOA, confident, direct, and clearly used to getting her way. The first time she walked onto my property, she didn't even ask. Just stepped over like boundaries didn't apply to her. She looked around, took everything in, and then focused on the burial site. And what she said next told me everything I needed to know. This area could be repurposed. Repurposed? I looked at her and said, "It's a burial ground." She nodded like she understood, but her expression didn't change. "Yes, but it's not active." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about land. It was about control. I told her very clearly that nothing on my property was up for discussion. Not the burial site, not the land, nothing. She didn't argue. She just smiled slightly and said, "We'll revisit this." And then she left. After that, things went quiet. To quiet. No calls, no offers, no follow-ups. And honestly, that should have been my warning. Because people like that don't just give up. They wait, and then they act. A few weeks later, I had to leave town for a short trip. Nothing major, just a couple days away. I checked everything before I left, locked things up, and didn't think twice about it. That was my mistake. Because while I was gone, they made their move. That brings us back to that morning. The call, the drive, and what I saw when I arrived. Heavy machinery on my land. Workers moving dirt like they had every right to be there. And the burial site, gone. Not damaged. Not partially disturbed, completely flattened. The fence was gone. The markers were gone. The ground had been leveled like it was just another empty piece of land ready for development. For a moment, I couldn't even process it, because there are lines you don't cross, and they crossed all of them. I walked straight toward the workers and asked what was going on. One of them said they were preparing the area for golf course expansion. I asked who authorized it. He pointed across the site, And there she was. Karen. Standing there, watching everything like it was just another project. I walked over, and before I even spoke, she started explaining how this was part of a community improvement plan and how the land was being integrated. Integrated, that's the word she used. I stopped her and said, "You destroyed a burial site." She didn't deny it, she just said, "We were informed it wasn't in use." That sentence right there. That's when everything changed for me. Because now it wasn't just disrespect. It was deliberate. I told her to stop everything immediately. She hesitated, then said they had permits. Permits. For land they didn't own. That's when I realized. Arguing right, there wasn't going to fix anything. So I did something she didn't expect. I left. No shouting. No threats. Just walked away. Because I knew this was bigger than a conversation. This was legal. Serious legal. I contacted a lawyer the same day. Gave them everything: ownership records, documentation of the burial site, photos from before, and what I had just seen. Their reaction was immediate. This wasn't just a mistake. This was multiple violations stacked on top of each other. Trespassing, unauthorized construction, destruction of protected burial grounds, and possibly more. Within days, legal action started. Formal notices were sent. Orders to stop all work immediately. And this time, they couldn't ignore it. Everything shut down. Machines removed. Work stopped. And suddenly, the HOA that had been so confident went quiet. Karen tried to reach out. Now she wanted to talk. Now she wanted to find a solution. But it was too late for that. Because once something like this crosses into legal territory, it doesn't go backwards. The investigation that followed uncovered everything. No valid permits for my land. No legal right to enter. No proper checks before destroying the site. Just assumptions. And entitlement. And it cost them. Massive fines. Legal consequences. And something they didn't expect: their expansion project was permanently blocked. Not just paused. Blocked. Authorities stepped in and made it clear that nothing like this would be allowed again. As for me, I made sure the burial site was restored properly. Every grave identified. Every marker replaced. Handled with the respect it should have had from the start. And the HOA? They never came near my property again. No offers. No complaints. Nothing. Because sometimes when people go too far, they don't just lose. They make sure they never get another chance. If you made it this far, I want to know, what would you have done in that situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to share this story with someone who'd appreciate it. And if you want more stories like this, make sure you're subscribed to Karen's Stories Daily.